what Trump has done for India is the greatest favor he has done to us. He's woken India, and he's told India, you have to be a credible power to be counted. So I presume and I hope that my country becomes a credible power to be counted, and it shall become. I hope so. Not hope so. I'm positive.
For the latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for updates.
You're watching The Gist on Strat News Global. I'm Ramananda Sengupta. We will be discussing America's strategic pivot under Donald Trump. And joining us today is Brigadier Arun Sahgal, founder director of the Office of Net Assessment, Indian Integrated Defense Staff, created to undertake long-term strategic assessments. Thank you for joining us, sir. It's always a delight to have you with us.
Thank you, sir. It's always a pleasure to be on your important channel.
Sir, let's take it right from the top with all this hoo-ha going on about Trump and the way, he's been treating India rather unexpectedly. A lot of analysts are saying that Washington has realized that the post-1991 unipolar days are over and that a multipolar order is inevitable. And they also say that therefore the US is crafting a new doctrine to extend America's leverage while buying time to reindustrialize and reassert itself. Do you agree with that assessment?
No, actually, it's a reasonably correct assessment of where America is going right now. Uh, America has been declining for some time now. Uh, America's strength lay in two areas. One is immense military power, which was always non-contact military power exercised from far away, and when it was exercised in person, it was against very weak and vulnerable opponents. The second was that post Bretton Woods, it has started controlling all the economic instruments of the global power, and that has given America an immense power and influence. And as a result, the America became a dominating economic power in the world. And third issue was its technological power. In all these three areas, the Americans find themselves on the back foot. Its stand-up military capability is on the decline. We're seeing what happening in Ukraine. The joke was 155 millimeter round. They did not have enough. Today, if you see the comparative analysis of the warship production between the United States and China, there is a years of difference. The AUKUS program cannot be leveraged today or be brought to fruition primarily because A, lack of manpower, and secondly, of course, is the reason given is that they do not want to share key technologies with outsiders. Be that as it may, economically, what happened was that America was basically an import economy. Everything in the world was got cheap, value added in, for example, a cheap product in China, value added and sent off to the United States, where it was further value added and sold in the market at very cheap rates. So the American got used to cheap products from all over the globe. Now, as long as this model worked in America's advantage, it was fine. But then came the technological advantages and the huge trade imbalances that started occurring between China and its main suppliers, i.e., United States and its main suppliers, China. So the result has been that there has been a realization amongst the MAGA people, and when Trump came into power, he said you cannot be a global policeman if you are economically weak and economically vulnerable. So, to that extent, he has started what is called leveraging industrialization as a main theme, like many other countries are doing as we speak. In our own country, that manufacturing is becoming a key element of our economic growth and potential. The problem now is that what Mr. Trump has started to do is he suddenly came across a very wonderful idea. He said, everybody wants to do trade with me, everybody wants to supply things to me. Why don't I leverage very coercive tariffs on them, punitive tariffs on each one of them, renegotiate trade deals? So, this is what is happening in one sphere. This is the economic sphere. While on the surface it might look that he's gaining ground, but on the other hand, as you see what is happening in Korea, you see what is happening in Japan, you see what is happening in Europe, and above all, you see what is happening with us. None of these countries are going beyond a particular point to go along with America or appease Mr. Trumpian economics. The next issue is the balance of power. The European balance of power is shifting. It is shifting primarily because 3.5 years of war in Ukraine has not led to the defeat of Russia or led to any serious blemish to the Russian capacity, economic power, and influence. It has been salvaged by its good friend China, and if the Americans are to be believed, even a better friend India through sale of oil. So the bottom line is, as far as the Americans are concerned, the war is in flux, no end in sight in Ukraine. Europeans are crying blue murder. They are spending 3.5% of the GDP on defense. Nothing is going to happen of credible nature over the next 10 years. So what happens? In the meantime, the modern wars have indicated how drones and other cheap weapon systems can penetrate spaces, airspaces. So there was a very seminal essay in Foreign Affairs where Stephen Cohen, not Stephen Cohen, Stephen Rosen, my good friend Stephen, professor in MIT, he wrote a paper as to, he says, rearming America. He says we have been arming everybody else, but we are not arming ourselves. And next issue was how all American bases are becoming vulnerable. So taking all these things into account, the Americans have realized there's a period to hunker down, start looking outside internally, and start rebuilding our power. But sadly for the United States, the world doesn't stop before the United States. So what is in the meantime is happening is that there is new power balances are emerging. And what we saw in SCO was not the SCO meeting per se, but global governance initiative, which is in which all the other three major powers, i.e., China, i.e., Russia, and India, and a NATO player like Turkey, and other 34 other countries were present, some members of the BRICS, they were all present to support the initiative of a new world order. So now there is a dichotomy that is occurring. There is a new world order on the global governance initiative that is coming up. I mean, we'll talk about it later if there is time. But and then there is this old democratic order which was led by the West. So there is a contradiction in terms that is happening, and the ability of the Americans to use influence and shape these are limited. So to that extent, the United States is a declining power. Its ability, even in places like Indo-Pacific, is limited, both of economic reasons. It doesn't have enough trade with ASEAN. It is already antagonized Japanese, Australians, Koreans, etc. So this is what the state of affairs is. As far as India is concerned, that's one of the issues that is bothering us very serious academics and party at the what do I will say a government of guys who understand. He said, "Why India? Why did you choose India out of all the place? If you needed a balancer in Asia, there was only one country that could have provided you with that balance and stability in the region. I have written in national interest, and I have questioned this whole logic of the fact that there is a across the administration there has been support for India. No, all administrations bipartisan support has been driven by their own strategic interests. Please do not forget this. It was not something which they did for India's sake. They did it for their own sake.
Of course.
So that's the logic I'm just trying to get at. So I'll stop here. And
So, one of the reasons that we sort of wanted to have this discussion is that there is this well known attorney and author called Navroop Singh, who argues that at the heart of the shift in the US is an attempt to negotiate a tacit G2 accord with China and a broader Yalta 2.0 agreement with Russia, in which the world is carved into spheres of influence. But given what you just said, how feasible is that?
I think I would say it's a fishing exercise at this particular point in time. Uh,
Hmm.
the reality of the issue is China realizes the comparative balance and the contextuality of its power vis-a-vis the United States. It is also conscious of the fact that it is essentially a geopolitical power, a continental power with global influence, which is induced by trade, and its key zones of influences are in global South and Southeast Asia, while Europe and US are its trade destinations. What it is, it believes that any G2 would basically lead it to converge with the US-led Western sphere of influence model, which will means that the global software of the both in economic and technological terms will continue to be controlled by the Americans or the Westerners. So it is in turn is wanting to create its own model. It has, you are aware of the fact that it has got global security initiative, commercial initiative, now it has come out with global governance initiative, which I talked about in my earlier response. The whole idea basically is this, is to get other countries, the BRICS countries, BRICS is now becoming an enlarged body. It still remains a fluid body, it has no structure as yet, and other players to create a new rules of governance in the global system, new digital rules, new economic rules, new trade rules, and new human charter based on the United Nations Charter, or what we say rule based order based on the global governance rules based order rather than American led rule based order, which is democratic in only in name, but it is basically in interest based rules based order. So in this structure, and next issue is Chinese have enough influence in terms of economic power, trade power, technological power, and military power. By showcasing its 14,000, 13,000 kilometer long range systems, showcasing its space based assets, and all kinds of other technological assets, the Chinese are sending a message. We are strong, we are capable, we are not pushover, and you can't take us for granted. Number three issue is the Chinese are very keen to control Asia as a first global center of its influence. And once it has controlled global center of its influence, its the next step is going to be in the Middle East and onto Africa. But Chinese have a problem. The Chinese problem basically is Chinese are culturally weak. There is no cultural linkage. There is no McDonald's or no nothing of those nature. The second thing is almost all the technical tools which is which is connecting the world, undersea cables, meta, uh, social media, the whole works are under the control of the West. So what the Chinese are going to do is, and we should be looking at these elements here, how much they're going to open up, how much they start getting ingrained with the global system as a part of a prelude to upgrading his BRI kind of initiatives, become make it more cultural oriented, more integrated with the people oriented, and to create its own narrative of cultural narrative or social narrative in which Chinas are accepted. Till that time happen, China will continue to play G2 pose. It will pose as G2, but it has no intention of becoming a G2, and it will continue to play this little game with the Americans. There is also an understanding. within the Chinese thinking, in my view, is that countries like India are important. Countries like Russia are important, but countries like India is even more important. So they will continue to have a look close eye on a country like India in this whole scheme of things in G2, and will closely watch how India shapes its regional and global partnerships. On the Indo-US relations, I'll only say this much at this point in time is that Chinese are conscious of the fact that there is no shift towards China. Whatever happening right now is a very transactional relationship, which they are comfortable purely because they are having problems inside their own economy. We are having our problems. So it's a if we can get together, and for me, the I will only believe the Chinese is when they open up their markets to us, and I'm looking at about 150 billion dollar Indian investment, Indian trade and investments in China. That will only satisfy a person like me. Otherwise, it's all drama. Even if I get about $50 billion this year and continue to improve on that, that'll be a good first step. But I still watch. It is not only that the Chinese have to invest in India. So I continue to say that at this point in my life is to say that trade and investment can be a good leverage vis-a-vis the Chinese, and it can also be an important leverage to ensure there is a certain degree of stability in our relationship. I will not say peace and tranquility on the borders, that is beyond the question, but I will say stability in our relationship. So that's the point I'm trying to make, sir.
Hmm. So, but if you're saying that eventually the Chinese want to become another hegemon like the Americans were at one or are, would we not be sort of trading one hegemon for the other in that kind of a situation?
There's a very interesting article by Ambassador Akruddin, Sayyid Akruddin.
Ah,
Uh,
yes, sorry, Raghuruddin. Huh.
if you read that, you will realize he talked one huge amount of sense. What he said was, don't discard the global governance initiative. Don't discard it. But when you are framing the rules for the new initiative, be on the table, have to control those rules. You will not be able to control the rules directly, sir. You do not have that heft. But you can create partnerships. Who are your partners? Brazil, South Africa, okay, even Russia to some extent. There are Saudi Arabia, the other countries who have the economic heft and who have a great say. You can all come together to ensure that the rules and the terms of the global governance initiatives are so set that it does not provide an advantage to another country, which you rightly said creates a new hegemon. We do not want a new dragon, sir. But what we really want to do is, but we also cannot sit on the fence and say, "ये नहीं होना चाहिए, तो इस करके मैं I will not do anything." No, you have to get your feet wet, get into the swing, and ensure, like the good ambassador very rightly pointed out, be at the high table and be counted.
Hmm. So, which brings me to another question which I've always wondered about. That we keep talking about the global south, countries which mostly come out of colonization and we would like to believe that we become a voice for them. How powerful or how sort of influential is that? How does that give us any leeway or heft or anything at all?
See, global south is the future of the world. It is developing, it is emerging. There are new corridors coming up. There are three new corridors are coming up, which are now incidentally, which are being shared. There are rail corridors coming up, which are being shared by the Japanese, Americans, and the Chinese. As we continue to invest, as the standards of living improve, their consumption levels are going to go up, and there will be the new economies which will provide you with incidents of trade, etc., investment, etc. The problem with us is we have a dual jeopardy. The jeopardy basically is that we are ourselves developing. Okay, we are going through the same cycle ourselves at a much faster pace. So we need a lot of money and investments within us, within India. So our ability to invest in global South and or to be a voice of global South, we can be their social voice, we can be their health-based voice, we can be their trading voice, but we cannot be their an investment voice on the terms of of these countries. But what advantage that we have is that we are, let's put it this way, we stick to the norms. We are not trying to undermine any political systems or political leaderships in these countries. So we work with them rather than work against them, and we are conscious that whatever we gain out of them, we gain out of fairness and in terms of our rights rather than in terms of manipulation. So to that extent, we will have a good voice, a reasonable voice, and once, and I repeat that, and once in, I would say, another 4 to 5 years, when we have a huge amount of technology, like if we get these chips. Now, if you have a 76 micron chip or a 45 micron chip, and all the electronic and car industry in Africa needs it, and if you give it 20% cheaper or 30% cheaper, you are making a huge statement, and yours will be cheaper. So what I'm trying to say, there are multiple ways of reaching out to global South and creating a name for ourselves. It is ever, it's my belief, sir, the money is never the criteria. It is the social use of money and the leverage and the manner in which you use that money for the betterment of people, of being committed to the welfare of those people, that makes much more sense. I hope I've answered your questions.
I think yes, that's a very clear way to put it. So, but I noticed that you said that earlier that that the Chinese lack that so-called cultural connect. Do you think the so-called civilizational connect that India has with South and Southeast Asia and other places does that help us in any way?
The same civilizational connect the Chinese have in entire Southeast Asia, sir. The entire
I was.
business is
Mhm.
controlled by the Chinese. Taipans control all those businesses everywhere else, and also we are civilizationally accepted. We are respected, but some of our business practices and even our tourism, etc. I travel a lot to Bangkok. I'm a regular back channel with our friends from the west and the north. So so I find that we are uncouth at times. We lose a lot of goodwill because of our behavior. So I think there is a on the cultural connect. There is a huge amount of Indian diaspora who are doing extremely well in Singapore, as you know, in Jakarta, another country, in Indonesia. There is a huge amount of this thing. But look at the irony: the Indonesians are, let's put it as in mind half Indians, or they're half culturally aligned to us, but in economic terms they are totally aligned to Australia and other countries. They hardly buy anything of us. We have very little trade with Indonesia. We've been
Mhm.
trying our best to improve our trade. We have not been very successful, let's put it this way. So my
Why is that
point
so?
is, because Chinese provide cheaper stuff. Australia is next door. They provide much more than their public relations are much better. We are improving. It's not that we are not improving. We are improving. We are learning as we go along. But sometimes the diligence and 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 due diligence factors are go against us because we are more profit oriented. So let me put it this way. So sometimes the profit gets the better of us than but I will be told that no, we sell so many motorcycles, we do everything. All that is taken cognizance of. All that is taken. I've been to Jakarta a number of times. I've seen that. I talked to those people. You,
Mhm.
you, they buy our generic medicines, yes, but there are no hospitals. One or two, that's all. You should be having. We have the cheapest milk in the world. I mean, Amul milk, and we can flood the market. They don't buy our milk. They buy that stupid pasteurized milk from Australia. So the
Right.
butters on the tables are Australians. So
Mm-hmm.
my joke used to be with the Chinese was the day you guys start making your own butter, you really become a big power. They also get butter from New Zealand, incidentally, on the table.
Mm-hmm.
So my point is that we have opportunities. We have lived in a particular persona of us. We are changing. We are changing for the better. We are changing. We are realizing that we have to shape and change. And I think that's our advantage, and we will do well as we go along.
Mm-hmm. So we're almost running out of time, but given the kind of scenario that you've painted so far, what can India do under these circumstances? What would you? I mean, let's say if you could change certain things in New Delhi right now without hesitation, what would you? What would your priority be in terms of two or three things?
We have to take on 4 to 5 important technical missions, time bound technical missions. Prime Minister talked about an engine. We don't have to talk about engine anymore, sir. We should say next 3 4 years, beg, borrow, steal. I want an engine functional. I want a certain degree of microchips. There are. I want AI integration done in a particular fashion. I want my space-based system to be operational. I want to have 25, 30 military satellites which cover India 24 by 7. I need a precision strike capabilities. I'm talking about the military term, but there are a large number of other technologies that we need to be looking at.
Mm-hmm.
That's issue one. Issue two is don't whinge upon tariff barriers. I mean, 10 rupees you get out of tariff, and the amount of problem you create is enormous. Even today, I'm told, I may be wrong, I read it some time back, that it is cheaper to get cotton cloth from abroad than to get the other cloth, the whatever his cloth is called, and we have to pay duty for it purely because there are some people whose interests we are trying to support. So we have to be prime minister and the political leadership have to be ruthless in next 3 4 years to ensure that the ideas that they are pushing across, the kind of system pushing across, we, they fructify. I'll give you another example. In the joint statement on Indo-Japan, when the Prime Minister went there, Shinkansen's timeline was not even mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And Shinkansen has been happening for last so many years. We have a Mumbai-Delhi transport corridor, which is still not functional. We cannot work on these issues. We need port capacities. We need huge port capacities. You cannot become a 6 trillion or $10 trillion economy if you do not have this kind of support system. So
Mm-hmm.
digitization. You know, your our road infrastructure is stupid because our road infrastructure is the size of the road is decided by the audit guy who sits on the साहब अभी तो 500 फीट की रोड है आप 100 की मांग रहे हो आप 100 को छोड़ के आप 150 की मांग रहे हो अब ये क्या हो जाएगा साहब it will cost me so much of money. So it's the perception that we need to think big, think long term, and get out of the procedural mindset, but get into a developmental mindset if that is what we need to do, sir.
So what you just told me reminded me of a conversation I had many, many years ago, right after our 1998 nuclear tests, with a diplomat called Arundhati Ghosh.
Yeah.
And she was our, I think, diplomat at the CTBT for the thing. And she told me the problem with India is that while we have the power, we don't understand power, we don't know how to use power, and hence we're always lagging behind because we keep on siding with the underdogs rather than. Is that a valid assessment, and is that true today still?
Absolutely, sir. She is my guru. I learned my nuclear issues from her. So I totally agree with you. We no, not only the power, we do not have a vision how to
Hmm.
leverage power over long time. It is this Viksat Bharat issue. People laugh at it. No, you have been given a vision. India lacked vision. You may achieve it, you may achieve 70%, you may achieve 80%, you may achieve 60%, but you're working towards a goal. It is that working towards a goal, an integrated goal, in which all elements at least have been defined. We may not be able to uh, execute them, but they have been defined, and that's what we need to do. And I
And we
think
don't have that yet.
I we are working on it, and I think the what Trump has done for India is the greatest favor he has done to us.
Hmm.
He's woken India, and he's told India, you have to be a credible power to be counted. So I presume, and I hope that my country becomes a credible power to be counted, and it shall become. I hope so. Not hope so. I'm positive.
On that positive note, sir, I'm afraid we'll have to bring this interview to a close. Thank
Thank
you
you,
so
sir.
much, sir. You use as usual were very clear and lucid, and you don't pull your punches. That I suppose is a very a remarkable thing in today's world. Thank you so very much, sir, and I look
I'm
forward
too
to
old,
having you
sir.
with us
I'm
again.
78 years old. There's no time for me to left to pull my punches. If I don't do it now, I
Uh,
won't have much time. Okay, thank you very
I
much.
understand, sir. Thank you so much, sir. That was
Okay, thank you.
Brigadier Arun Sahgal, founder director of the Office of Net Assessment in IDS, created to undertake long-term strategic assessments, talking to us about the state of the world today, particularly with Donald Trump, who has disrupted the entire global system, and what it means for India. I do hope you enjoyed this particular edition of The Gist, and I look forward to having you with us again.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you, sir.
much. This is Ramananda Sen Gupta.